Think about the last time you walked into a room full of people you didn't know well. Maybe it was a new class, a gym, or just a party. What was the first thing you did? You probably adjusted your clothes. You pulled out your phone to look busy so you wouldn't look like a loser standing alone. You wondered if the way you walked looked weird or if everyone was staring at that tiny spot on your chin. We live our lives under a giant imaginary spotlight. We are constantly suffocated by this invisible pressure to look perfect, say the right things and fit into this neat little box that society calls cool. But let's be completely honest, it is exhausting. Caring too much about what other people think is the single biggest thief of joy and potential for our generation. It keeps us from starting that YouTube channel, from talking to a girl, or from wearing the clothes we actually like. We are literally letting the hypothetical opinions of people we don't even respect dictate the path of our lives. And today, we're going to talk about why your brain is doing this to you, and how to finally break the contract you signed with everyone else's expectations. Let me tell you a quick story, because I used to be the absolute king of caring too much. Back when I was 16, I bought this vintage oversized denim jacket. I thought it looked amazing in my bedroom mirror. I felt confident, but the moment I stepped off the school bus, the anxiety hit me like a truck. I walked into the hallway and this group of older guys looked at me, whispered something and laughed. That was it, just a 2-second whisper. But for the rest of the day, my brain was completely fried. I convinced myself that everyone in the school thought I looked ridiculous. I spent the lunch break in the bathroom stall just to avoid being seen. The moment I got home, I threw the jacket into the back of my closet and I never wore it again. I literally let the random meaningless reaction of a few strangers dictate what I wore and how I felt about myself for months. And looking back now, do you want to know the funniest part? Those guys didn't care about my jacket. They probably forgot I existed 3 seconds after they laughed. They were probably just making a joke about their own math test, but my ego turned their minor glance into a massive personal attack. We do this every single day. We take random events and construct this entire narrative in our heads that the world is actively judging us. It's delusional. Psychologists call this phenomenon the spotlight effect. It's an egocentric bias where we drastically overestimate how much other people notice our appearance, our action, and our mistakes. Here is the hard truth that your ego doesn't want to hear. Nobody is thinking about you. Think about it from your own perspective. When you see someone trip in the hallway or stumble over their words during a presentation, how long do you actually think about it? Maybe you smile for a second and then you immediately go back to checking your phone, worrying about your own hair or thinking about what you're going to eat for lunch. Everyone is the main character in their own movie. The people you are so terrified of judging you are currently drowning in their own insecurities. They are too busy adjusting their own clothes and worrying about their own flaws to spend their precious mental energy analyzing yours. When you realize that everyone is just as insecure and self-absorbed as you are, the spotlight suddenly turns off. You realize you're not standing on a stage in front of a critical audience, you're just standing in a room of people who are also trying to figure out how to look normal. If human beings have always cared about status, why does it feel so much worse for us right now? The answer is the digital landscape we live in. In the past, if you did something embarrassing, maybe 10 people saw it and it was forgotten by the next week. Today, every mistake feels like it could be broadcasted to millions. Social media has turned life into high-stake performance. We don't just live our lives, we curate them. We take 50 photos just to post one, because we need to make sure our jawline looks sharp and our life looks exciting. We check our notifications every 2 minutes because those little red numbers give us a hit of validation that says, "Hey, look, people approve of your existence today." But this creates toxic dependency. If you rely on external likes and comments to feel good about yourself, you're handing the remote control of your emotions to the internet. If a video does well, you're happy. If a photo gets fewer likes than usual, your self-esteem takes a hit. You become a slave to the algorithm. You stop doing things because you genuinely enjoy them, and you start doing them purely for the camera. You stop being a real human being and become a brand. And a brand is always terrified of getting bad reviews. When you care too much, you inevitably fall into the trap of people pleasing. You become the chronic nice guy or nice girl. You say yes to favors you don't want to do. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny. You nod along with opinions you completely disagree with, just to avoid friction. You tell yourself that you're doing this because you're a good person, because you're polite. But it's not politeness, it's cowardness. You are trading your authenticity for temporary approval. You are so terrified of conflict or rejection that you erase your own personality just to keep other people comfortable. And here is the dark reality of people pleasing. People can smell it. When you constantly try to please everyone, you actually end up pleasing no one. You look desperate. You look like you don't have a backbone. True respect isn't given to the person who always agrees. It is given to the person who has a solid foundation, who knows who they are, and who isn't afraid to stand alone if they have to. If you don't have the courage to be disliked by some people, you will never have the capacity to be deeply loved and respected by the right people. So how do we actually fix this? How do we reprogram our brains to stop suffocating under the weight of everyone else's opinions? First, you need to accept the rule of thirds. No matter how perfect, kind, or successful you are, 1/3 of people you meet will naturally like you. 1/3 will naturally dislike you for absolutely no valid reason. Maybe they just don't like your face or voice. And the final third won't care about you at all. Once you realize that losing the approval of that middle third is completely inevitable, you stop fighting it. You stop trying to convert the people who don't like you, and you start investing your energy into the people who actually value you for who you are. Second, you need to practice voluntary discomfort. The only way to build a tolerance to judgment is to expose yourself to it in small doses. Wear that jacket you think is cool, but a bit risky. Go to the gym and perform an exercise even if you're worried your form isn't perfect yet. Sit alone at a cafe without pulling out your phone to look busy. When you intentionally place yourself in situations where you think people might judge you, you notice something incredible. Nothing happens. The sky doesn't fall, nobody points and laughs. You walk out that situation completely unharmed, and every time you survive a tiny moment of social awkwardness, your brain realizes that the fear was completely manufactured. You build emotional calluses. At the end of the day, you have to realize that life is incredibly short. 10 years from now, high school will be a distant memory. The people whose opinion you are sweating over right now will be living their own lives, dealing with their own problems, and they won't give a single thought to what you did today. When you are lying on your deathbed looking back at your youth, you are not going to care about the people who whispered in the hallway. You are not going to care about the hate comment on your video or the awkward conversation you had at the party. The only thing you will care about is whether you had the balls to live your life on your own terms. Stop asking for permission to be yourself. Drop the spotlight, drop the anxiety, and just live. Thanks for watching, brothers. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.